That was Colin Gall singing his song podcast that we have adopted as the theme song for the Won't You Be Our Neighbor podcast. I am Steve Shoney.
And this is Darren Schulman.
And we are here today with the newest member of the City of Upper Arlington senior management team, Gary Wilfong. Gary, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. So
when you say newest member, we're not talking like last year style. We're talking like first week style.
Second. I'm an old timer now. This is my second week.
This is your second week. So we do this podcast. Have you listened to the podcast?
I've listened to the first two.
Did you listen to the podcast before we hired you, and did we ask you that question before making you a formal offer?
No, you did not.
That's an oversight that we need to
That's
address.
a new interview question that people must answer to get hired here. You don't actually have to have the criteria or the specification for the job, but you have to have listened to the podcast.
I listened to the first two. I talked to Darren about it this week, that some of the jokes you guys were making, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good place to work.
Recruitment tool.
There we go.
It was a recruitment tool.
Well, at least we hired somebody who knows how to suck up properly.
Exactly.
That's right.
Our processes are working.
All right, so we got you on the pod today just to let folks get to know you a little bit better. And then I am actually going to ask you what we typically do in these is ask a semi-serious serious question in as unserious a way as we can. But first, look, we have a lot. Our residents end up having a lot of interaction with the team, in particular directors. As you know, we count on you to problem solve. So why don't you tell all five people who are going to listen to this a little something about yourself?
Sure. As Steve said, my name is Gary. I am originally from Wisconsin.
Can't tell it all from the voice.
Yeah. Jackie always says I sound like a Canadian, so yeah, a little bit. Originally from Wisconsin, so I've been in Ohio since 2008. Most of that time I was working for the city of Columbus. But the vast majority of my career, except for about 2.5 years, has been working for municipalities. So I have a lot of experience working for cities, about half for smaller cities, about the size of Upper Arlington. Most of my time in Ohio was with the city of Columbus, but I'm really excited to get back to a little bit more of a smaller community, a little bit closer contact with residents, and so I'm really excited. Looking forward to being here.
And I think you could probably answer this question because you just came off your job interview, but what does this position that you're in now do? Like, what would Upper Arlington residents expect you to be doing?
Sure. This position is the Director of Public Service. So that includes both engineering and public works. So I am over the capital improvement projects. So any street, storm, sanitary water projects in the city, I've got my hand in that. And then the other side of the house, I guess, is the public works side. So street cleaning, leaf removal, plowing, snow plow, ice removal, that is all in my wheelhouse.
So unlike the city attorney position, everything you do directly impacts everybody who lives here.
Yes.
Yeah, so don't get in his way.
Exactly. Yeah,
Be nice to Gary.
Stay out of my way.
Or he will run you over with a plow.
Yes.
One thing I did learn about you in the interview process, you and I have worked together a little bit in the past
Yes.
when we were both at Columbus. But one thing I did not know was that you have done community theater in the past.
Yes.
So the question is, musical theater or just plays?
Just plays for the most part. I did do one show where I had to sing. It was a show actually written by someone in the theater there. This was back in my time when I was in Iowa. So I had one show where I had to learn how to play guitar and sing a song. Okay. And so I learned how to play one song. I don't know how to play guitar. This was several years ago, so I can't even play that song anymore. But
what are your top roles that we would recognize?
Probably the biggest one would be A Few Good Men.
You can't handle the truth. Tell me that was you.
No, that wasn't me. I was the Tom Cruise character.
Oh, you got the lead.
So,
and you do have that look.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, I'm sure you get told that all the time.
We can say that because it's this podcast.
Yeah, this is a podcast, so
no video, so you can get away with that.
Full disclosure, when you see him, he does not look like Tom Cruise.
I do not. But yeah, A Few Good Men, which actually was fun because the person who played the Demi Moore character is now my wife. And so we met doing community theater, and so now I am married to the Demi Moore character.
That's
in
legit.
A Few Good Men.
Were you like romancing her at the time? Like,
we were dating at the time.
okay.
Yes, we were dating at the time, and now we are married.
Did Tom Cruise and Demi Moore ever date in real life?
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I believe it or not, I actually listened to her biography.
She has a biography?
She does. It actually is pretty good.
I like Demi Moore. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole. We're talking about public works and now we're talking about...
She's got a whole lot of stuff in her past, but yeah, it's pretty
I saw
interesting.
an interview with her talking about it. I haven't listened to it or read the book. But
You don't need to. You married her.
yes, I married Demi Moore. That's correct.
This podcast is full of misinformation. We've said Gary will run you over. We've said you married Demi Moore. This is the least educational podcast.
All right, so we are going to make it a little educational. This time of year, when we start construction, we start getting into being in the right of way. And one thing I've seen coming to this job, we get a lot of people who maybe they open their mail and they see it or whatever, and all of a sudden our crews show up and they're doing stuff in somebody's front yard, and they're like, wait a minute, right of, wait a minute, what is this thing? What's this right of way thing? Right, and it basically becomes right of what the and
Wow, you just dropped the F-bombs.
see, this is recorded, dude. I know he can
Edit it out.
I know he can edit it
I just
out.
want to know what kind of sound beep he's going to employ. I guess
I'm gonna
it's
play
no-
it backwards.
Yeah.
So, and I just wanted to do part of the reason I
you've
wanted to
wanted
bring
to
this
say
up is
that
I
for a
wanted to do that. So, explain for the average resident what right of way is and how they should think about it in terms of as they're thinking about taking care of their home and taking care of their property.
Sure. So the right-of-way is city-owned property. And I think that, as you talked a lot of time, it can get a little confusing. People think, well, I maintain that. I mow that, and so that's my property, which is understandable misconception. But the right-of-way is owned by the city. Typically, it is, where the road is. So it's the road that the city maintains, and city utilities are in the right-of-way as well. And so...
Doesn't it also include usually that little green strip between if you have a sidewalk and the road?
Yes.
And also roads, we have that road, but you usually go a little bit farther than the road for your right of way because you need room to maintain it and maybe widen it.
Right, and that's exactly right. And that's where the misconception comes is people maintain that strip. And if there isn't sidewalk, they maintain all the way out to the edge of the road or the curb. But that is still city property. And you're right, we do need that property to maintain our facilities. Even if we don't have a facility directly underneath that spot, we still need it to maintain what we have. And it's also used by private utility companies. They have the ability to install in the right-of-way as well. That could be the gas company, the electric company. They are out there as well. So it is really used for a public service. It's used for the public. The public uses it to traverse the road, to walk on the sidewalks. And so it is not owned by the property owner themselves.
All right, so now that I don't own it, can I just stop mowing it?
No, you cannot. There are still rules within code that requires the property owner to maintain that property, including the sidewalk. The property owner does need to maintain the sidewalk and keep it free and clear of ice and snow. And also, if there is damage to the sidewalk or trip hazards, that ultimately is the property owner's responsibility to maintain that.
But the good news is if you're not interfering with the use of the right-of-way, you can enjoy that green space.
Sure.
You can walk on it, play on it, have your dog.
But don't put $100,000 worth of don't put anything on there that's semi-permanent that you're worried that you're going to be really mad if the city comes and takes out.
Like a lot of crazy landscaping.
Like
and
a
things like
lot
that.
of crazy landscaping, like a big old tree, that sort of stuff.
I would definitely recommend if there's something you want to put in the right of way to reach out to us first and let us talk about that and see what you want to do. And even if it's you want to plant a tree, we want to talk to forestry and make sure that what's going in there complies with city rules and regulations.
All right, Darren is the city attorney. Did he pass that?
He aced it. I'm glad we hired him. I'm glad I He answered right, and we didn't accidentally hire the wrong guy. You verified our decision.
You're just saying that because you want to meet Demi Moore. So
Exactly.
that's the only reason you're saying that.
So, well, thanks for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining the team.
Yes.
It's I was really excited when you agreed to come on and thought about joining our team. So really appreciate it. I think you're going to love working here. Darren or Gary, do you have any, since Brian's got to pull out the beep button, do you have anything like completely that you've always wanted to say on a microphone?
That I want to get off the chest. I mean, I do, but I also want to continue to be invited back. So I'm going to save it for episode. If we make it to episode 10, I guess.
That's when it
then
comes
you'll
out.
drop it and make him pull out the button.
Yeah.
All right, great. Gary, thanks for coming on. For our community guest today, we're going to have Pete Scantland, who is the owner and founder of Orange Barrel Media, and Pete will be on in just a minute.
Podcast. We're gonna have a podcast. Yeah.
Well, we are here today for the fifth.
You said 5th before, so I believe you.
I think it's the 5th episode of the Won't You Be Our Neighbor podcast. I'm here with Darren Schulman, and we've got with us today Pete Scantland. How you doing, Pete?
Great. So nice to be here.
So Pete
He says that now.
He does.
Just the day is young.
Yeah.
Pete is lifelong Upper Arlington resident and native here, founder of Orange Barrel Media. You have absolutely no interesting musical taste. We asked you that question. I found it just there wasn't much there, but we won't hold that against you. You're an avid runner, and you have a passion for travel. So we are going to start with our start, bench, cut question for those of you who, I don't know anybody who at this point who's listening who probably hasn't listened to one before, because
Why would you jump on 5 episodes
So
in, and they're
for
all
this.
available? So if this is
Yes.
your first episode, stop, go back and listen to all first 4, and then start again.
But anyway, we ask everybody, who would you start, who would you bench, who would you cut? Typically, this is a sports question, but we're going to go travel on this. And so think of it as start, bench, cut. Think of it as stay, rent, sell. London, Paris, Florence.
Stay, Paris, rent, London, sell, Florence.
Really?
All right, so now I just have to jump in and bust Steve's chops a little
know.
bit. Steve wanted to have Toronto on this list. And I was like, nobody wants to go to Toronto. So where would you put Toronto on that esteemed list?
So if we
of
were,
places?
let's make it a little fair.
Not
if
in
you
the
were to go,
condition.
Not in the list.
Not in the set.
if you were to go North American cities, where would you put Toronto?
Middle third.
All right, thanks for coming, Pete. It's good to see you.
Are you Canadian, Steve?
North America.
At some level, I wish I was Canadian. No, I lived up there for a year. I've spent a lot of time up there, and I just, I always describe it as having all the benefits of Chicago and New York without any of the dirt.
Any of the problems?
To Steve's credit, when I laughed in his face to try to put Toronto, and he did back off pretty quickly.
I did stop pretty quick.
But I'm glad you backed me up on this one.
So, who should we have had on the initial list? What city should we have had on the initial list to make it tougher?
I think that's a good list, honestly. You have cities that are storied, and some are kind of stuck in the past, and some are moving towards the future. I think it's an interesting question, honestly.
Yeah. So tell us one of the things that I think in our time working together. So for those who don't know, which was probably anybody who's listening, Pete and I worked together on a number of different projects when I was at the City of Columbus. And one of the things that I wasn't surprised when you said you have a passion for travel, because in your work I've seen a passion for spaces and how people interact with spaces and what the images in those spaces do. So talk to us a little bit about Orange Barrel, what Orange Barrel does, what kind of the origin story for Orange Barrel is.
Yeah, so Orange Barrel Media is a media company that focuses on partnering with cities to develop signage that adds to the character of urban places, and it's developed in a public-private business model. which doesn't sound very innovative, but in our industry, it is. I started the business in 2004 here in Columbus. Mayor Coleman at the time had just advanced the downtown business plan, and Columbus, like many cities across the country, was experiencing a renaissance and moving from kind of a 9 to 5 business district to one that aspired to be, at least 18-hour kind of environment. And the signage that we did could help contribute to a sense of place, and it could provide a revenue stream for developers to convert these buildings that were, an industrial use or perhaps some other commercial use into something that was more mixed use. Along the way, we got better and better at how do we partner with cities to deliver that benefit, and we've since that time we're the leading company in this industry in the country. We're in 30 cities, and in each case the formula is the same. It's how do we take a business model that cities have seen as parasitic, and frankly one that they weren't interested in helping to grow, and help them to deliver benefit to their constituents through our program. So, for example, we have a concept where we pass a zoning overlay that rezones for the type of signage that we do, subject to a revenue sharing agreement, that a portion of the revenues from these signs would go to fund public art, for example. We just put that into place in Atlanta, for example. A variant on that theme is in West Hollywood on the Sunset Strip, where we just put up the first new digital sign under a new program in the city of West Hollywood, where that reinvents what a billboard can be from a formal standpoint, from a design standpoint. We partnered with a really significant architect. A significant amount of the time on the screen goes to public art, community organizations, and it generates significant revenue for the city.
So you mentioned billboards, you've mentioned screens. Just for people who are listening who might not be familiar with what an Orange Barrel Media sign is.
Sure.
Probably describe that, because I think people are thinking, is this just a big billboard or what?
Yeah, so if you're in Columbus, for example, one of our signs is at the corner of Broad and High Streets. It's the big digital screens, and actually throughout history, that location has always been home to really significant signs. If you look back in the turn into the 20th century, that was where whatever the big companies were at that time, they wanted to plant a flag. And the technology has changed quite a bit since those days, but the concept is the same.
I used to work downtown when that's a pretty cool. I mean, it's a big screen. It's got different things. It's got tickers. I mean, it's a pretty cool looking thing.
Right. And that signage there actually is a significant portion of the revenue of the property, and probably without that, the property wouldn't have been redeveloped.
So the other signature billboard that you have in town is the one at your headquarters,
right?
Which used to be old. Was it grain elevators or was it a concrete plant? I can't remember.
It was a concrete batch plant.
Okay.
And so that's another great example where we were able to buy that site, which had been largely unused for a decade, because of its visibility, but it was such a central location. It was really kind of amazing that opportunity existed, and ultimately today we first built our headquarters there and then went on. Cover My Med's office is there now as well, and altogether there's approaching, I think, 400,000 square feet of office space there now. So in large part, with many thanks to Steve and his work on that project.
Well, I for that project, it was the only time I've actually had a protest sign with my name on it was for that project.
And we can work on that if you want.
And you brought up Cover My Meds, and that company was founded by your brother. He subsequently sold it. So you guys have a little sense of entrepreneurship in the family. Where's that come from?
Really, for a long time, from the time we were little, we had some scheme. We were, from painting dresses on curbs and raking leaves when we were little to we always had jobs. Our grandfather was an entrepreneur. He started an architecture and engineering firm in Cincinnati, and he's, an inspiration to us. And our parents really encouraged us, along the way and set a value system that, insisted on hard work and on, creativity. And they were, and my father and mother are both inspirations to both of us as well.
So how did the family end up in Upper Arlington then?
My father came here for graduate school and worked was working at Battelle, and he worked at Battelle for 20 years. And when we were seniors in high school at Arlington, he lost his job. And he was a company man. He thought he'd worked there his whole life. That was also, I think, a really, that was a point when I think Matt and I both decided we wanted to try to do something ourselves. It also turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to my dad, because he went from working at Battelle to working at a series of fast growth companies. And he taught us a lot about how to do that as well. So
that's cool.
It turned out to be a great thing for everyone.
I should have mentioned that your brother is your twin brother. So when you say you guys for those who don't know, when you guys say you graduated from high school, yes, the two of you graduated.
We go way back.
How do we know we're talking to the right twin? This could be part of a conspiracy
so-
to swap them out. Did you ever do that in high school where you try to switch to each other or something?
Yeah, we tried that once. It didn't go very far.
So the family's got something else going on. So
Yeah.
it's not just you and your brother that have the entrepreneurial gene. Your sister and your brother-in-law are getting into the act. So why don't you talk a little bit about what your family's doing with what I think everybody in town still calls the old Huffman's Market.
That's right. Yeah, we're really excited about that. We just signed the lease on formerly known as Huffman's Market, soon to be called Littleton's Market, and we'll start construction here in a matter of weeks on building the kind of market that we think is missing in Columbus, focused on providing a place for people who love food and wine, and adapting to what we think is a lifestyle that people have today. Some people, want to cook, and some people need someone to cook for them, and we want to provide an offering, for both. And so it'll be expanding as well, and we're taking a portion of what's currently the bank space next door to add another 5,000 square feet, and we think it's going to be something that's really special and something that's missing in Columbus, but especially in Upper Arlington. And so we're excited to restore the tradition of that being a really differentiated type of offering right here at Tremont Center.
So the other thing you said, talking about maintaining the tradition, I think one of the other things that when you and your brother-in-law and the family came in to talk about it, I was impressed that when you talk about maintaining the tradition, it's not just maintaining the idea, but I think you guys have worked to retain some of the key folks on the staff to kind of make sure that you've still got that feel of that hometown market that everybody understands. Am I remembering that?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. James, who is an institution at Huffman's, and actually I worked at Huffman's when I was in high school, so this is especially fun and rewarding to participate in. James is sticking around, and really what we're doing is taking, I think, evolving it to suit today's marketplace. I think at the time, if you look back at the glory days of Huffman's, it had a really different perspective, and today, trying to just be a subscale version of Giant Eagle doesn't work. And so what we're going to have is a really differentiated offering of things that you can't get other places. We're going to have the best meat, the best produce, the best fish, and we're going to have grocery items that are unique to us. And so, we really want to be a place for people who love food to seek out and make the trip.
So since you and Matt are both big runners, and you used to work at the grocery. Are you going to be doing deliveries, like running tours from house to house?
Best of both worlds.
Are you going to make Matt do that? Which one of you guys are going to do
We'll
that?
be racing to see who can complete our list first.
So, and I have noticed that occasionally I'll see you two out running. And for some reason, it always seems like you're on sprint phase whenever you go past my house. I'm not sure what that is.
We've always been trying to impress you, Steve.
Yeah. I thought it was just to get away from me.
They don't actually run. They just drive about a block from your house. Run from your house, get back in the car on the other end.
Sometimes we're carrying a protest. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Clean my drive.
So what is your distance that you run? And are you a long distance or a sprinter? Or?
Yeah, no, I run about 40 miles a week.
Oh,
so
it's about a year for me.
I try to do one long run a week, and I run every day. I'm intolerable if I don't run to the people around me. So, and what I found is I wake up every morning, no matter what time, and I'll run first. And, that really clears my mind and sets me off to have a great day.
So do you race, or is this just your mental and physical health thing and you don't race?
I used to run in more kind of races, and I haven't done it the last couple of years just because, it's kind of nice to not have, another source of anxiety and stress. But I used to run in some races, yeah.
Would you do a marathon or like a 10K?
My favorite was a half marathon, which to me was kind of the perfect distance because I don't have the time to really train properly for a marathon. In a half, I could continue to get better. And so that's my preferred distance, yeah.
My preferred distance is like from my couch to my kitchen to get some snacks, and back to my couch during a commercial break because you only have 2 minutes.
Your preferred distance was the little half court that you're playing Friday afternoon basketball.
Yeah, if you can call that running, a half court of basketball is pretty good too.
Yeah, that's to each their own.
So every podcast we do a couple kind of finish up questions, and they're pretty simple, and I think you've heard them before. What do you love about UA, and what would you change about UA?
I think UA is a really special place for a lot of reasons. It has a real sense of community. In a city like Columbus that has a lot of transplants, you have a nice mix of people who, many of which go back a long time and many of which are new. And I think one of the really great things about it is that people can come here, whether they grew up here or not, and are welcomed. I think that's also, one of the things that's changing and should change about Arlington is figuring out how do we be a more welcoming city and embrace new ideas and new people. And that's something that I think every city is struggling with, and Arlington is tackling in its own way and I think making great strides at it.
We've been working hard at it. It's something that, the challenge for us is how do you continue to celebrate this fantastic pride that people have here in this multi-generational history that we have of residents, and still make it feel like a place where everybody's welcome and not everybody went to high school together except for you.
Right.
And I think one of the keys to doing that would be to put me and Darren on the big billboard where you usually have Rogue Fitness.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Orange Barrel Media can help us out with some of this stuff.
It's either that or a video board around kind of the municipal center space. Which of those do you think is more doable?
I think we have great plans to install video boards throughout Upper Arlington. So that's our next request.
So we're gonna start. Let's see, where should we start? We'll start on we'll start along the Scioto Country Club wall.
Yes.
They would love it.
I think that would.
I think class up the joint.
You could just put an image of a wall most of the time, and then when you wanted to change it, I think
when you wanted to put us on it, which would be 90% of the time.
So I need to remember to wait until I'm right before retirement to start throwing these kinds of ideas out there.
How long's your contract, Steve?
Not long enough for that idea.
No tenure yet, right?
No tenure yet.
We don't get tenure here.
Pete, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself with the community as a whole, and continuing to be part of the community, and you and your family both continuing to kind of invest in UA and not only keep us great, but help make us better. So
Thank you. It's great to
thanks
be here.
coming on.
Thanks.
Podcast.